Welcome back to the I Jupiter Live. I'm your host, Tom Franklin. Today we have on the wonderful Kehne from the Arizona 4, and we're going to get into some more of what he's been experiencing on the Mogollon Rim. I do realize I am about 5 minutes early, but we were just talking about it. He's a former military gentleman, just like myself, and he says, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late, and I believe in that as well. Also, today is a very somber day, a day of remembrance. This is the anniversary of the D-Day invasion, the liberation of Europe, and we would make sure that we don't forget things like that. So this is a very special day for Kevin and I, as well as many other Americans, Europeans, and other allies that fought with us on those beaches in Normandy. So if you keep finding stuff coming back to the IJuber, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. You can also go over and get yourself some of the MP3s. Go over, do me a favor, guys, leave me a rating over on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Go ahead and download a couple episodes. I'm changing it up a little bit over there. I've been uploading all the lives in the future, in the beginning of the episodes, lives as well as regular programs or regular shows. I will be doing a little bit of an intro, about 3 to 4 minutes, to keep you guys up to date on things. So that'd be a reason to go over and check out over there. Let's see. If you guys want to get a t-shirt, hat, I got some merchandise here. The descriptions for all that are down below. You can follow me on Rumble. You can also follow me on a whole bunch of different social medias, including my Facebook page, which is where basically we're based at. It's a nice little group, and everybody shares their videos, and we talk and discuss matters. And that's where you can keep up to date on everything that I'm doing over here on the show. So, with all that out of the way, let's welcome from Arizona, Mr. Kehne.
Well, hey, how's it going, Tom?
I'm doing well, man. I was looking in your backyard there and enjoying that you have finally some nice weather down there.
Yeah, we're where we should be. We're in the 80s and for the highs, and just absolutely loving it. Real quick, I want to thank you for bringing up the D-Day thing. I had an uncle that was first or second wave at Omaha, so yeah, it hits close. So
yeah, we have to bring it up, man. It's important. People forget like what that was about. I actually served in the armed forces, and 2 years of my duty I was in Germany. Because of that whole situation, and we still have bases there. It's minimized compared to what it used to be, but I think it's one of those kind of things where you never forget, and it's a very important date in all of world history, not just American. So it's important. You there?
No, never.
You're never there. You there?
Is it me freezing up, or is it you?
We can ask the chat. Who's freezing up? Because I'm not sure. Let's see. I look good. Everything on my side looks good. I don't have any issues. I don't have anything showing me that I'm slow or whatnot. So we have welcome. People are already welcoming you to the show. We have Thomas Clear. So it's okay. Thank you. So it's Kevin. It's your side, buddy. No worries. We'll work our way around it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. We have already people are asking you if you guys have t-shirts. Interesting. Does the Arizona 4 you guys have t-shirts?
Yeah, we do. We have, I'm wearing one right now, but we haven't ventured out into making quantity of them. We've talked about it. We're just a bunch of poor guys that run around the woods. So, but it's something we've been discussing is getting some merchandise made, and when that happens, everybody will know.
Hey, Chris is over there with a smiley, laughy face. Thank you. This is your friend. This is one of your good friends, part of the Arizona 4. So do me a favor, man. Like, you were on the regular show. That was an incredible show. One of my favorites. Could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and where we can find the Arizona 4, man?
Okay. So my name's Kevin, last name Kehne. Married, four kids, 21 grandkids, retired, medically retired. So I spend as much of my free time as I can out in the woods doing what it is I do, or we do, I should say. Chris says it's past my bedtime. Not yet.
Yeah. He's a little mean, ain't he?
Well, so I've been an avid outdoorsman my entire life, Eagle Scout, long distance backpacking, hunting, um, camping, all of that, my entire life. Um, I've done some work tracking, um, so just, very well rounded wilderness survival expert, yada, yada, yada. So we got the Arizona 4 thing going. We all joined up over the last 4, 5, 6. Well, actually, a couple of us 6, almost 7 years ago now that Rob and Wayne came onto the scene. Um, but it's just the group, 4 of us. There used to be a few more, but we've streamlined it. And if you want to see us, you can find us on Facebook at Arizona 4, like it's on the hat, or you
There.
can find us on YouTube at uh, the Arizona 4 Sasquatch Experience.
Okay,
So,
there's the Facebook. There's the Facebook group. It's right there on the screen, guys. The YouTube, I don't have it. I guess maybe Pam will grab it in a second. But yeah, man, it's when you first came on, we kind of just introduced ourselves to one another, and kind of like just like I normally do. I feel everything out, and the way you like fell into this was quite. Here you go. Here's your channel right here. Boom. There's your channel. It kind of like it kind of came to you while you were just out doing your thing, right? Living your life.
yep. Well, for me, how it all started, the very first time was, gosh, 1980 to 82, somewhere right in there. An experience with the Boy Scouts while backpacking on the Highline Trail, which traverses the base of the Mogollon Rim. So that was my very first experience. So I've always had an interest in it. I just never did a whole lot with it, because Bigfoot lived in the Pacific Northwest, not in Arizona. We had the Mogollon monster, and when I was a kid, back in the Boy Scouts, that's what we thought it was some type of a monster, and we were going to be eaten alive type situation. But the whole time I'm in the outdoors, I'm always paying attention to my surroundings, and a lot of high strangeness, especially, I spent a lot of my time in the Superstition Mountains, which is to the east of the Phoenix metropolitan area, home of the Lost Dutchman gold mine. Very rugged country, but I spent a lot of time in there, and just a lot of high strangeness experiences I had. And I just kind of always wrote it off as it was the spirit of the mountain, because I could never lay eyes on anything. Um, you know, I glow a couple of times, but I didn't, I had no idea what the hell it was I was looking at. And yeah,
Hmm.
so what I've experienced since then, it's a whole lot of aha, um,
Okay, we
and
actually have a
that's what
first
we like to call
question.
the aha moment. But
Yeah, we kind of
yeah,
jump in the shark a little bit, but we'll go ahead and we have a question from Ray. This is the person who wants to. They also said they excuse me, somehow it didn't work there. I'll grab it again. They also said they try to get into the Facebook page and they haven't been allowed yet. But the question is from Ray. What has Kevin learned about our world through Sasquatch that would blow our mind? Good question. Thank you.
um, about our what I've learned from the forest people about our world.
Yes, sir.
If I'm understanding that question properly, okay. Um, that we haven't got the slightest clue what's going on in reality. That's what I've learned.
Well, okay.
There's,
Eh,
it, it, well, the simplicity to that is, they have abilities that we don't, and they don't seem to be bound to the same laws of physics that you and I are. So with that being said, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens out there that it's just like I have no answers for it. I don't understand how it works. Um, it's our nature to want to know, especially me. I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy, and I want to know how stuff works and why it works the way it does, and that for the most part just does not work doing what we're out doing. A phrase that I coined was, "Don't let your experiences." Gosh, now I'm going brain fart now. Don't let your experiences. I'm just going to shut up. My brain just went white.
You said it on the first show. Something like something. Your thoughts inform your paradigm. Let your paradigm inform your thoughts. Something like this.
Yeah. I'll get it here in a second. I've had three granddaughters here for 2 weeks now, and so my brain's a little on the frazzled side. But
I'd imagine when you have 25, I think you said yeah, no worries. I'm sure when you have 20 plus grandchildren, 21. You have 21. When you have 21 grandchildren and they come by, it's they always want to see granddad, and sometimes you get a little twisted up. Here it is. Chris got it for you. Don't let your paradigm dictate your experience.
Thanks, brother. I knew I could count on you.
Thank you, Chris.
Let your experiences dictate your paradigm.
Another one of the Arizona 4. Wow. Chris is there. No, don't worry, man. So this happened. You had a little bit of eye shine.
Frazzle moment.
Don't worry about it, buddy. This is what people want, man. If you're perfect and polished, then what's the sense of doing anything?
Yeah. Okay. There's a difference between eye shine and eye glow. Eye shine is light reflecting off eyeballs, like a cat or a dog or something, and a car drives by and you get the glow from the light reflecting off of the eyes. Eye glow is when they bioluminesce their eyes, and they actually, the best way I can describe it, majority of the time it's green, but the chem lights that you snap and shake up and they glow. Yeah. It's that kind of a green. And when you got something like that big around, two of them about that far apart, it's obvious what it is. But so eye shine, eye glow are different, and so what I was experiencing in the superstitions a couple of times was eye glow.
Okay. Have you experienced both?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of the eye shine, because when we're out doing what it is we're doing, we're sitting in the dark. All right. Most of the time you can't see your hand in front of your face. No campfires, no lights. We use real high light discipline, or we attempt to. When the moon's full or something like that, you might have an opportunity to get a little bit of eye shine, but the times that I've had the actual eye shine was, when I was younger doing backpacking, and, would shine a flashlight and, get a little eye shine. But, it's hard to determine exactly what it is. It could be a cow. There's all kinds of animals out there that, you can get the eye shine from, but when you get eye glow, there's nothing else out there that does that other than the forest people.
Another question from Ray. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was a natural pause. I'll get there.
No, it's all right. I'm just saying that's the distinction between the two.
Yeah.
And, and so when a lot of, when people say I've seen eye shine, are you talking about eye shine, light shining off the eyes, or are you talking about the bioluminous eye glow? Yeah, so that's the distinction between the two, and there's a huge difference between them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all experienced, you shine a light through a field, you see deer, fox. I mean, I've even seen those wolf spiders. If you shine lights on them, they'll reflect back at you as well. So, but that's different than something actually glowing, even if you're not shining a light on them. Even if it's like cloudy or something like that at night, that's different. The question we have from Ray is: have you had any experiences outside of the woods? And I imagine in regards to the forest people, maybe you can go into that a little bit and tell me what you experienced.
Okay, outside of the woods, it's being that I'm from the desert. I spent a lot of time in the desert, so yes, I've had desert experiences. And actually, one of the best trackways I've ever found was in a place that most people would say there's not a chance you got a trackway there. But on the on the east side of the Phoenix metropolitan area, there's what's called the Salt River Recreation Area, um, separated by from the city by a very small mountain range. Um, and I mean a very small mountain range, but it's where everybody goes inner tubing. And there's one section on that river where there's a divide before it makes a hard 90-degree turn and goes under the bridge, but it's called the island. And during the winter months, there's hardly any water being released because they're storing it up. And so it's easier to get out to this island. So I was, my first year out doing this, can't go up on top of the Mogollon Rim because there's 5 feet of snow up there. So I'm like, well, okay, let's see what's going on. There's water source, there's trees, there's food, all the typical stuff that, the average person would think that they need. So I went out there and I actually found a lot of structure, some woven branches. But when I came across that trackway, it was just phenomenal. So I did made a video of it and took photographs and yada, yada. Now outside of the desert, and maybe what the question was referring to was, Pamela, that wasn't on a podcast. That's on my Arizona Squatch channel. You have to go into the Wayback Machine on it, but you can find the video on Arizona Squatch. As far as at my house, yes, I've had 2, maybe 3 episodes at my house. The most profound one, and Chris kind of told you about the one that I called Indy, but the backdrop to this is, I've been out in the field for 2 years doing this, starting to develop a relationship with one of the senior elders. His name is Yeaden. I called him Indy. And so my daughter wanted to go out to the Renaissance Festival, my youngest daughter. So my wife and I, we went and picked her up. We went out to the Renaissance Festival. I've got one eye. I'm blind in this eye. It's prosthetic. So very crowded. It's hot out there. I'm bumping into people. They're getting pissed at me. I'm getting pissed at them. My PTSD just starts skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And, I just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. We got to leave. I was spun up, and, so I went home, took a puff. That didn't help. And I said, well, I am going to bed. And I was laying in bed. I was saying my prayers, and, I kind of sleep on my stomach / side. And I felt this ever so gentle touch on my shoulder and on my head. And I thought it was my wife. And I turned, to look, because I thought she was coming in to, comfort me down a little bit. There's a shimmering image standing there. And I look and I say, is that you, Indy? And I get the subconscious, yes. And you need to go to sleep. And I was out cold, probably out for almost 11 and a half hours. Woke up the next morning feeling like $1 million.
That's incredible. That's so strange. Oh, I don't even know where to go with that one.
Yeah.
So, you got me befuddled. I'll do what you did a minute ago. That way we look like a couple peas in a pot here. So you go to Mogollon Rim. Yeah. So you go to the Mogollon Rim. This is an area that's an elevated plateau in I believe it's like closer to like the northwest of northwest Arizona. Is that correct?
It's the central part of the state, and it runs for a couple of 100 miles. Where we go, and if I stood up and raised the camera up like that, you can see it. I literally live on the edge of the Mogollon Rim in a small little community called Strawberry. So this is where I live. Lived here for 4 years now. Used to live in the Phoenix Metro area, but retirement's brought us up here, and peace and happiness. So the Mogollon Rim is where we spend the majority of our time. When the weather gets to a certain point, snowfall wise, when the very first heavy snow comes in, the Forest Service shuts the Mogollon Rim down. Because you get a lot of what we call idiots that have no business being anywhere other than the middle of the city. But they'll want to go play in the snow, and they'll go drive back on these roads, and and get stuck, and they've had a lot of fatalities because of it. So they just shut the roads down, so you can't get back into the places that we go to. So when the first heavy snow comes in, that's what happens, and it's typically closed until April 1st. We didn't have any snowpack this year, so it was pretty much open all year long. I mean, my first trip up to a place that we call church camp, I think we were. It might have been January that we were up there, which is absolutely unheard of.
Okay, didn't you guys just recently go up there? At least you were up there. I've seen some pictures and some photos on your Facebook. Weren't you just up there recently?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we were. Well, I was just up there Memorial Weekend for family outing.
Okay. All right. So you guys, there's four of you. I remember Wayne. I remember you, and I remember Chris. Yeah, I can hear you. It's kind of breaking up a little bit. We'll make it work, man. It happens sometimes. That's the beauty of the live. It happens, So, do you hear me?
I think I'm back.
Yeah, you're coming in and out, but like I said, normally it's on my end, so no big deal.
Yeah. Let's pause for a minute, because I think part of my issue. Hey, Benedict, can you have everybody sign off of the Wi-Fi, because I'm having a lot of trouble. So if you're on the Wi-Fi, can you not be on it? Okay. Is that any better?
Yeah, it sounds good. No big deal. They can't really pause it, but it's not a problem. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Well, I just had all the grandkids get off the Wi-Fi. So
yeah. Well, I did is I ended up
be a bandwidth thing. So
yeah, I ended up connecting to my through a cable, but I still had issues because I had like so much of my trash that I had to empty. My computer was slow. Things happen, dude. That's what it's part of it. You were telling me. So you had, there's four of you guys. There's you, Wayne, Kevin. No, you're Kevin, Chris. So Kevin, Wayne, Chris, and who's the fourth guy again?
Yeah.
And the fourth gentleman again?
Rob Copeland.
Robert Copeland. And you guys just you started, you were friends, I'd imagine, before this somehow, and you both started going up and enjoying the outdoors, and then you just okay. How did this come about?
No. All right. Well, first off was Rob. Me and another guy that I used to go out with. We wanted to go try out a new location, and pulled up on site with my grandson, and I was like, oh crap, somebody's camping here. And I was like, oh well, the forest is free. If anything's going to happen, it's going to happen. And so we ended up going over and talking to this couple, and it turned out to be Rob and his wife, and they'd been camping in that area for 25 years, and asked them, have you had any weird experiences? And Rob goes, what, like UFOs or like in Bigfoot? And I go, well, yeah, like Bigfoot. And no, we have, they start giving us that look like, we're off our rocker. And the guy I was with looks at him, we're talking and explaining some of the stuff that happens. And he says, sometimes they'll do real subtle stuff, like maybe you found a flower on the seat of your quad. And, and the fact that he even said that, I was just like, wow, where'd you come up with that? Well, Rob and Kathy, they look at each other and they're like, no way. And, and we talked to them for a little bit more, and, I give them my information. and you know, because they were packing up and they left. Well, they got a hold of me and they really wanted to talk. And so we went over there and talked with them for about 3-4 hours. And they were just completely baffled that we knew that there was a flower left on the seat of their quad. It was her quad and the flower was on the seat, but that had happened years before. And, you know, and Rob was always like blaming his boys for it. They're like, wait, what? You think we're going to put a flower on mom's seat? You know, type thing. So they never understood where the flower on the seat came from. And the fact that, you know, this guy that I was out there with, you know, brings that up, and, you know, it just kind of bang. And, you know, so Rob's been coming out with us pretty much ever since. You know, one of the first times that Rob came out with his wife, I think it was like his 3rd or 4th trip out, and and I laugh because of the situation, but you know, we're sitting kind of apart from each other, and it's dark, and there's like 6 or 7 of them around us, and Kathy snaps. Rob will watch this. Snaps at him and says, "Stop touching me!" And Rob's like, "I can't even reach you." Yeah, you know. So they came up and was touching her, and one of Rob's friends that was there the next day told him, you know, he was an engineer. He goes, "I don't know how to process this, but I saw an arm," and that, you know, that's all he saw was the forearm and hand touch her, and you know, so he's been addicted ever since, and you know, so that's how Rob came into it, and Wayne came in pretty much about the same time, kind of the same scenario, except he had contacted us, and you know, we invited him out. So him and Rob pretty much at the same time became part of the group. And then Chris and I, you know, we had met up previously on a YouTube group, on a Facebook group, sorry. And then he had moved to Arizona and he wanted to come out. And I said, well, you can come out with me. I can't promise you anything's going to happen, but what I can promise you is I've never been out and not had anything happen. And, you know, so he came out on that first trip with me. It was just him and I out there. And it was a class 10 plus type night, you know, type trip.
Wow.
It was just an amazing amount of activity, and, you know,
yeah. Well, go into it. Tell me what happened the first time you and Chris
part of this family of ours.
Tell me what happened when you guys went up there the first time you and Chris
went up
there.
What didn't happen?
To hear about that.
Yeah. Well, the question is, what didn't happen? You know, so, you know, going back into the Wayback Machine here. You know, it started out, you know, took him out, and the first day he got out there, I met him out where we make phone calls, brought him and showed him some structures, and then we went for a walk kind of down this hill, and, you know, found juvenile footprint that was about that big. You know, it had dried up, it stepped there in the mud, but you know, so that was a rock solid, and we went back up to camp, you know, and he had a pretty decent, well, I shouldn't say decent, but he had a limp. He had a bad ankle. And we got back up to the camp, and he's like, man, I got to go to bed. I don't know what's going on with me. I got to take a nap. And so he went and laid down. He was out for like almost 3 hours. Yeah, you know, so I'm sitting there going, you know, this guy sleeps a lot. But he woke up, and, you know, everything was fine and dandy. And you know, next thing I know, he's going, you know what? My ankle doesn't hurt. And just to say this, he has not had any pain or limp in that ankle since that first moment. But, you know, it's just the high level activity, you know, the twinkle lights and eye glow. And, you know, it's like the 4th of July with all these lights going off. And at one point I decided to walk him over to where the gift stump was, you know, because I was still gifting at that time. And, you know, so, you know, it's pitch dark, but, you know, so we walked, I don't know, it was about 150 yards or so out to the gift stump. We went out there to that, and you know, we were getting buzzed, you know, getting some zaps, light zaps, nothing real heavy. And so we're walking back to the camp, and it's like these flipping stadium lights were on just on the other side of where our camp was, and just lighting the forest up. There's nobody within probably 15 miles of us. There's no vehicles with KC lights on. I mean, nothing, and Chris is going, the hell is that? And I'm like, I don't know. That's a new one for me. And
Wow.
it just a lot of heavy activity like that. That first trip, and for his first trip out with me, I'm glad he got the full Monty, instead of just like a twinkle light. Ooh. But
I mean, when you see that,
so
yeah, I'm sorry. There's a little lag, no big deal. When you see something like that, is there any part of you like that gets a little bit like scared a little bit? I mean, is there anything when you see something that's so bright that shouldn't be there? There's a part of you that doesn't just go, "Wow, what is that?" Is there a part of you that goes, "Wow, what is that?" You know what I mean? Like, no, okay.
the only time I've gone was the very first time I saw the big red orb, and I think I talked about that on your last show. Um, Over at Squatch Camp, and it as the crow flew about 15 miles away from where Travis Walton was abducted back in I think 78 or 79. So and I was brand new into this, and so I was like, what's going on here? But no, when they tell me that I am protected when I'm out there, that there is always one watching me when I'm out, and that they're looking out for me, I trust them in that. And I've had enough situations that has verified that. And
so
is there a lot of stuff that happens that makes me go, what? Yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine like you to build that kind of relation. I'd imagine to build that kind of relationship with these forest people, that it takes a lot of trust, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of respect.
Yeah, it does. It's for the first couple of years I was doing this. Like the first year, in just a matter of we'll just say August 1st to October, I did 36 days. The second year I was doing this, I did 114 days. Third year, wow. I was out, I did 120 days. I spent a lot of time out there, and there's a lot of things in life I could have been doing other than that. I got a beautiful wife and grandkids and my kids, and I did Papa daycare. There was a lot of things I could be doing other than spending thousands and thousands and thousands of hours out out in the forest, trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, it took a lot of time to develop the level of trust that that I and we, and I will say we, because we've all had our experiences. We've all had some very profound moments, and I'll tell you that there's not one of us that goes out there that we have not felt their love, not felt their trust, and even a degree of respect. It's
wow.
It takes a lot of work, but
I was talking to Barb. I can't think of her last name right now, but she's up in Washington State, and she's starting to develop that as well with them. And like she had this thing where they're pretty upset about the fact that we as humans think that they're monsters. Like she had this profound feeling that right. And she says, she was saying somewhere up to 6 to 7 different types are in Washington State, that they're Barb Hartman. Thank you so much, Barb. I just did an episode with her. It's coming out later in a couple weeks, I'd imagine. Yeah, about 4 weeks. And she was saying that that there's many different types. There's some that are like complete black. There's some that look like, there's some that are like human looking or like Native American looking, but they have like long hair. And there's some that look like like, you know, your mountain gorilla. And it's so weird, the variety that she's running into and the amount of like time it took her to get over to fear. And now she's building slowly this relationship with them with help of other people who have like yourself and the Arizona 4, who have a much more in tune connection with these people.
Yeah. What I will say is I don't know about different types, um, because I can only speak to what I've experienced. Um, but with that being said, how many different types of us are there? I mean, you've got, all the different races, within our species. And I use the word species lightly, but you know, you can find all of those different features amongst us. There's brown us, there's black us, there's white us. There's some of us that got slanted eyes, there's some of us that got big eyes, there's some of us that have big brow. There's a large gambit, in us, and I think it's pretty much the same with them. I can't say that definitively, but just from what my experiences are, and the several different locations that I've been and the sightings that I've had, yeah, I've seen them pure white, like a polar bear. Rust colored, black. I've seen big fat ones. I've seen real thin ones, tall ones, short ones. Just like us. We got fat guys like myself, and we got skinny guys like Wayne, and that's just a shout out to my brother. He looks great. But there's just a whole variety of us. So to come out and say dogmatically that there's different kinds of them, I won't do that. I can't do that because I don't know.
That's fair.
Can we
That's
speculate that? Yeah, it's probably a fair speculation, but there's a lot of things that I would like to say that this is the way it is, but I can't. I just don't have that ability. Because the reality behind it is we are dealing with something that we don't have the slightest clue, what's going on with them. The ones that we deal with, and the ones that I have dealt with this whole time, they're peaceful, they're loving, they have culture, they have hierarchy, they have their own spoken language. Their cultures, and the thing that I've noticed between the different locations that we go to is their behaviors are primarily the same, but you'll have personality differences, family differences. Like this family will do something just a little different than how this family over here operates. But for the most part, they pretty much operate the same way. We're
right.
getting the same type of experience. Sometimes, we get treated to something special and new, like when Wayne vanished on me.
Right. I wanted to get into that again.
That was
special. Yeah, I wanted to do that one again. Yeah,
but we're always getting.
It's a timing thing. Let's go through one more question real quick. I don't know if you can lend anything to this, but the Ray again, killing it with the questions. Thank you so much for your interaction. What is the oldest Sasquatch or forest person you have learned of? I've heard 1,000 years, but that's an extreme end. Do you know of their ages or anything about them as individuals?
The best answer I can give to that is the information that I've understood from the little brief speaks that I get from them. Like Indy, when Indy passed, he was 226 years old. He's got a brother that is older than him, but from the best of my understanding is they live about 3 times longer than what we do. So my grandmother was 105 when she died. So is it out of the realm of possibility that they can live 3, maybe 400 years? I wouldn't put it any farther past 400 years just because of my, what I've experienced. Do I know that dogmatically? No, I don't.
Okay.
I can only speak of, from what I have learned. Are there ones that can live for 1,000 years? I haven't got the slightest idea. I personally don't think so. But that
Yeah,
and
but
a quarter will get you a cup of coffee somewhere.
yeah, the 200, but 26 years, I think you said, is that's quite a shocking revelation.
Mhm.
I don't think I've heard of that yet. That's a new one for me. That's incredible. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
th-
a vast knowledge through being, long time in the force, and what they do, whatever it is that they're doing different than us, which is probably better, but let's get to that. But yeah, then they also have a long time here, so that's so incredible.
well, here's something to think about. Okay, we'll just talk about Indy. He was 226 years old when he died, and that was back in 2020, 2021. Um, so he was an adult when the first Anglo-Saxons came into the Mogollon Rim area, came into Arizona, so he was an adult, and he watched us come in, and he watched, saw us cut down the forest, put in roads and power lines, and throw trash everywhere and shoot at everything that moves. And people wonder why they don't want to reveal themselves to us, is because we're assholes and they're not. It's just that simple. So if that is the case, that's how old he was, he witnessed the very first Anglo-Saxons move into this area.
Incredible. I think. Do you have any type of hope that maybe, like, through shows like this and many others, and the information and the research, and just the experiencing that you and your friends are doing, that maybe somewhere along the line that we'll, like, wake up and, like, kind of respect each and everything out there in the woods?
Oh, well, that's always the hope and dream, but I mean, hell, uh, we are inherently evil in nature. You've been around the world, you've seen it, I've seen it. In
Oh yeah.
general, we're rotten beings. We can tell ourselves that, yeah, I'm a good person, but and then somebody calls and wants to talk to you and say, oh, I ain't got time to talk to you, and I got to go because I got something going on, and you hang up and you go back to eating your popcorn and watching your TV. You just lied your ass off to somebody close to you. So and then in the brass tacks, everything, we're assholes.
Mm,
We're untrustworthy, and so we have to work on ourselves. And that's kind of a lot of how they operate. Is how I've always felt, is they've looked at us with pity. And
well,
the love that they have, that I know that they have, that has been shared with me in different ways. um that kind of love only comes from can only come from the creator. And there's no sense of
oh,
evil to it whatsoever. I know a lot of people say, you could be getting fooled, and yeah, I'm putting the time. We are putting the time, out in the field. We have a lot of downtime. We have a lot of discussions. We dissect everything. We don't agree on everything, and that's one of the things that makes us, so beautiful. Because if we all agreed on everything, next thing you know, Joe Shit the Ragman is sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, I know everything about them, and this is what they do, and this is why they do it, and how they do it." And so with us being very critical, um, on our experiences and dissecting them, and trying to um, just really understand what's going on. And we're all from different backgrounds, and different belief systems, and that we all work together and try and harmonize um, our experiences. And the funny thing about it, with all the differences between us all, for the most part, like talking about the experiences, um, they all mesh together for the most part. There's things that we disagree on, but they're minor little things, and but that's what keeps us focused, and that's what keeps us balanced. I guess is the
Yeah.
best way to put that.
Yeah, if you try to take your if you that's the thing, we have this ego thing being a human, like I know, but the thing is it's okay to not know anything. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. We have this expectation upon ourselves as others to like know something, but we don't. And it's fine. Like just experience for what it is. Set yourself within yourself, clean the shit in front of your steps before you try to point out the shit in front of somebody else's steps. And if we all did that, instant change in the world. And I just try to figure out why, because you would have to think that that not just you or I or the small community. I would say, what do you think? Maybe 20% of the people in America believe that these things exist in the woods. What is that when this with this evidence that we are collecting that is not accepted? The Patterson Gimlin film is the most popular because it's the most obvious, and people just go, that's a gorilla in a suit. You're like, no, dude, like when are we going to like really see it for what it is?
Yeah. One of the things that since I started doing this, when people, referring to, how could you be so silly, blah, 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 blah. There's no such thing. Science found anything, we've all heard all the stories. My response to that is, are you familiar with the allegory of the cave, otherwise known as Plato's cave?
Yes,
And
yes, I am.
so I encourage, I yeah, and I figured you would be doing what you do. But a lot of people don't understand that, and I encourage people to broaden their horizons, and you know just simply look up allegory of the cave, and that's a big answer right there, and why the mass majority of the people don't want to believe it. One of my best friend, he kept denying that this was going on. I took him out. He heard the knock sounds, branch breaks. I showed him a footprint. We had sausage stolen out of our ice. He's had a lot of experiences, and he kept trying to deny it. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not buying anything. I'm not selling anything. But this is what, all these other questions you have, they're going over here, and we're only going to talk about what you experienced, what you saw, what you experienced, and you come up with your own conclusion to that. And, so now, he absolutely knows that they're real, and he doesn't want anything to do with them, and he won't go into the woods anymore.
Wow. Wow.
So, so be it. And, and it's understandable. A lot of people do not possess the mental capacity, to actually be out in the woods and dealing with a lot of what we deal with. I've seen it happen over and over. People, I've taken a couple of people out. I took one guy out that, all he did is, God, for breakfast he drank a 30-pack, and
Oh my Lord.
I was like, I've got to vet these people a little better, and so I've taken people out that just could not. So mental capacity, your ability to cope with stuff. I mean, hell, you've seen it in the military. There's people who can handle things, and there's people who can't. And the people
Yeah.
who can't, they're fine to sit on their couch. They're fine to do all that stuff. What we're out doing is not for everybody. Are there times out there that I get freaked out? Absolutely. But it's not out of fear of harm to myself or anything like that. It's like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. Yeah. You have
This isn't
some?
made. This isn't made for everybody, and so it's very understandable that few people believe.
Yeah, you had some audio that you wanted to
Okay,
run
you
by
broke up.
me.
Say that again.
You had some audio that you wanted to run by to show people a little bit of audio that you had. I'm sorry, Ray, I can't get to all your questions,
Oh,
uh, but
okay.
thank
Yeah,
you, dude. Yeah,
I'll
we'll
give
do
you
it.
the. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Sorry that this connection. I feel like Kramer in Mexico. I had to throw a jab at him. But no. So in 2018, um, in 2018, I decided that I was going to, step up my level of, showing them that I trust them. So I was sleeping outside on my cot instead of in my tent. But I had the audio recorder out, and what I recorded. Okay, at the time, I had a little metal tray or stool that I used as a table. And I had my audio recorder sitting on that. And I always did the same thing over and over and over, repetition. And this particular night, I had left something out on the table that was metal. Um, Hint, hint, wink, wink. And that I've never left out before. And it was just a slip of the mind. And so I'm going through the audio the next morning. I uploaded it in the computer, and I was like, what the hell? And, so what I thought it was at first was Junior picked that piece of metal up off of the table, and Daddy said, put that down. And then you hear it get put back down, a metallic click. And that's what I thought it was at first. And I'll go ahead and play it a couple times. Now we got to do, everybody, please forgive me. This is called AST, Arizona Squatch Technology. But I'll play it 3 or 4 times through, and then I'll bring the mic back to myself. So bear with me. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on. I knew that was going to happen.
Whoa!
So did that come through?
Yeah, it sounded like they were talking. You hear me?
Yeah. So what he's saying, and I don't know what it translates to, but it's hick to sue, and then sound, that metallic sound. So that's why I had thought that what I was dealing with was Junior had picked that up off of the table, and Daddy said put that down. And but what I've learned since then with all the different audio that I've recorded, was like some of the tribes in Africa that click and pop when they talk.
Yeah.
They do the same exact thing a
Wow.
lot of times when they talk. So I'll bring this one up. I call it Pennsylvania because it sounds like they're saying Pennsylvania, but I have no idea what it is they're saying. But you'll hear the clicking and popping along with whatever it is they're saying. So let me go back to my Arizona Squatch Technology here.
Okay. Wow.
So were you able to hear that
Yes.
okay?
Yes, I was. It was very. It was. It does. I mean, if you put that Pennsylvania
Okay.
in your mind beforehand, like an EVP, you can probably hear that. But it could be a number of things. But it's like, as they're saying something that's solid, is like clicks and pops in there as well. Very, very weird.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
just goes, "Yep." So Ray he or she asked a question earlier. Why is it that it's so difficult to get like photo evidence of them? It's easier, it seems, to get audio. Why the photo is so difficult in your estimation?
Okay. Um, what my experience is, and one of the things that, they do not like cameras. They know what cameras are. They're not some dumb ape running around the forest, going ugh. They're very intelligent. They know what cameras are. They don't like them. They don't, they don't want their pictures taken. Once in a while, they'll do something. But a lot of the time, I've got a photograph that that they're in that's pretty rock solid. Um, I couldn't see him, but my camera picked him up, and and knowing that they have this, what I want to say is when they're in their natural state, we really can't see them. It has something to do with vibrational frequencies. That's the only reason we see anything, the way the rods and cones in our eyes work and pick up light. And, so we're able to see things because of vibrations and frequencies. And
Right.
it's just a hypothesis, which is a very expensive word for us wild ass, different frequency than we do. And but it's at a state where cameras can pick them up, dogs can see them, animals can see them, but the way our eyes are, we can't see them. So when all of a sudden one walks, just appears out of nowhere and starts walking by, um, it's my guess that they're doing that intentionally, that they're either speeding up or slowing down their vibrational frequencies so that they can be seen, kind of like a here I am. 'Cause the
It's like they
Apache Indians say you'll only see the hairy man when he lets you. So
right. Right. That's what I was picking. That's what I was kind of gleaning
um
from that. Is like they kind of like let you know if they want to, and I'd imagine they have some type of intuition as who you are as a person and what your intentions are.
mhm. Oh yeah, they,
Okay.
they can read you like a cheap book very easily. Um, and now as far as the audio, they never seem to have an issue with me leaving the audio out. I did this for 6.5 years, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of audio. I'm 14,000 hours out in the field, so you figure every night, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours, the audio is running every single night. There's a lot of audio I haven't even been through, but I got told, it was 2 years ago, stop using the audio. And so I was like, okay. And then the next year, I took the audio out and set it up. I've got the file on my audio recorder. I can see it on my audio recorder, but whatever computer I plug it into, the computer won't see it.
Wow.
So
Th-
I don't run audio anymore.
So they just kind of shut that down or change the frequency in which now, okay, you can record us, but we don't want you to. So therefore, you're not going to hear. Uh, okay, I definitely want to get to this
Yeah.
part. The last time you were on, you told us about the experience you had. It was three of you, um, and something happened on the side of the road. One of you, Wayne, stepped forward, and from your vantage point, you couldn't see him anymore. Could you go into that one more time for me? Because and you said there was more that is, insane and
Yeah.
crazy, but
Yeah.
I want to get back because that's the one that really struck me.
Okay. Yeah. And if you go to our YouTube channel, we just recently, like 3, 4 videos back, We just recently revisited that because we were at Squatch Camp and decided, this was 2 years ago. Let's make a video about it so we can document on site exactly what had happened. But so, it's a dark night, and, venture around and walked out to the road. And Wayne and I were looking one direction. Chris was looking the other direction. And about the time Chris was getting ready to turn around, Wayne looks at me and goes, "Did you see that?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, I saw that." We both described what we saw. About 60 yards down or so, a rather large individual crossed the road. The only reason we could see him is because of the skyline back behind him, so it kind of highlighted him a little bit.
Okay.
So I was like, let's walk. So we decided we're going to walk down there. So we got about to where we thought it was, and just nothing going on. And we decided, well, let's walk a little farther. And I think we took about 10 steps, and something caught my attention off to the side of me, and I stopped and I looked to the right, and it's just like the 4th of July, just twinkle light, sparkle, static, just it was just absolute nuts. And so we're all sitting there looking at it, and so we go to the edge of the road. I'm in the middle, Wayne's to my left, Chris is to my right, and we're standing side by side, because it's dark. And Wayne looks down at his feet and goes, "I got these little lights all around my feet." And so we're looking at that, and he goes, "I'm going to walk out there." And he took about 2 steps, 2, maybe 3, and I was like, Wayne, are you all right?" He goes, "I'm fine. Why?" "You disappeared. I can't see you." Now I could see what was on the other side of him where he was at, but he was gone. And Chris, who's right here on my right, I see him just fine. "What are you talking about?" And so I leaned over to, get Chris's vantage point, and I could see him. And I come back over, and as I came back over, it's like he vanished. And so, Chris wasn't happy about it, but I grabbed him, I pulled him over, "Look." And he's like, "Oh shit, he's gone." And "Are you feeling okay, Wayne?" And Wayne's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm right here." And so he stepped back out, and we're like, "Oh, what the?"
Yeah.
What just happened? And it was one of those moments that was just absolutely like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And so I'll segue into this. The last time we were at Squatch Camp a few weeks back, when we redid this video and that, so we're kind of trying to recreate it. Maybe I don't know. We walked out to the road. It's dark. It's a little 2-track road, but we walk out there, and we walk up towards where this disappearing act happened, and there's just nothing going on. And so we're walking back to the camp, and we all decide, well, we're going to walk farther down the road. We all kind of felt the same way at the same time. And so we start walking down the road, and this night we're out. It's close to a full moon, so it's very bright out. And we get to this spot, we're in the shadow.
Right.
Best way to describe it, we're in the shadow because the moonlight is being blocked by the trees, but there's this area that's lit up, and we get right to the edge of that, and I stop and I kind of look to the left, and all 3 of us at the same time are like, "Oh shit, you guys, you're seeing that, right?" Well, there was an individual right on the other side of where the light was, where the shade started on the other side of this lit up area. And I don't know, it's probably 8 foot tall, between 7 to 8 foot tall, just standing behind this other tree, but blatantly obvious. I mean, we're looking at this guy, and I don't know, probably a couple minutes goes by. Wayne changes his vantage point to get a different view of him. And about the time Wayne did that, he darted. He went from right to left, crossed the area that was lit up. And I mean, it was just a blur as fast as he went, but Chris and I both watched him, boom, to the left. We're just like, going, what the hell? And just a lot of cool stuff happens up at Squatch Camp. It's my favorite place. That's where it all started for me.
And you just kind of this Sasquatch camp, you kind of just stumbled upon this one day while being out there. Like, it's just a place that just happened, or like, how did you discover this area?
Well, it's where it all started for me. I mean, not all started, but it's when I really dove head first and into it. It was a family camp out, and it was kind of a new area that we decided to camp in, from where we used to camp. And my son and I, from watching Not Finding Bigfoot or whatever that show was called, I don't recall. But we go out and bang on trees and looking for footprints, and just, the typical aper type thing. I had no idea. And we'd finally found footprints and got whistled at, and, just a bunch of stuff had happened. So I kept going back and kept going back and kept going back and kept going back and kept going back. And, so that's where it all developed. And, and the interesting part about that is, I was telling you, my first experience in the Boy Scouts literally happened 3 miles as the crow flies away from that spot. And later on found out the incident I had in the Boy Scouts was Indy, this individual that passed away at 226 years old.
Tell me more about Indy. Tell me more about Indy.
But
what do you know about what can you tell us about Indy that would be like informative, so that people start to get like a little bit more of a picture of this individual that you had this relationship with?
He was a big guy. No, he was one of the senior elders. He is a member of the GAN, which is kind of like the best way I can describe what the GAN is like the senior elder spiritual, take the president of or a governor of a state and a bishop and maybe an attorney, and and you just take all that and you kind of wad it up into one ball, and that's the the best I can understand of what the members of the GAN are. So when an individual is part of the GAN, and I don't know if it is a bloodline entitlement or how it works. But once an individual is a member of the GAN, it'll be that individual's name with the suffix behind it. So like the one I called Indy, his name was Eaden. And because he was a member of the GAN, his name was Eaden Gon. And his mate was Eaden Gen. So there was a male and female suffix that went with that. And it took years to understand this, because when they give you information, it's not like you get all of this at once. They give you little bits and pieces, and you got to start putting the puzzle together. You put one brick on the ground, you got a brick. You put 1,000 of them on the ground, and now you got a wall. And it's kind of like that. And so I understood that there had to have been a male and female suffix to what that was about. The Eaden Gon and Eaden Gen. Well, the mate carries over, the female carries over the male's name. So Eaden Gon and Eaden Gen. Her name is something completely different, but that's what her title is, Eaden Gen. And
wow.
So what ended up happening was in the Payson Museum in Payson, Arizona, which is basically home of the Mogollon Monster. One of the guys that we used to go out with, would work there, volunteer, and he'd found something, and so we ended up going over and looking at it. And the Apache Indian, refer to these spiritual beings as the Gan. And I'd read an article before this about how the Apache Indian San Carlos Reservation was fighting the Vatican when they were trying to when they were putting their big observatory up on top of Mount Graham, and they didn't want it up there because that's where the Gan live, and the Apache have what's called the Gan dance. And and the Gan lived on, and I want to say it was 5 mountains, maybe 4, but there was 5 distinct mountains that the Gan lived on. And and then have this backtrack into the names that I had got back in 2017, how it all correlated and tied into this information that we got. So it's not one of these things. I guess that's what's going on, and trying to make up a story, and having it develop and tie into all these places. You couldn't make this up if you tried. And the way that it all just tying together was pretty incredible. Well, Rob and we were out at a place we call Crazy Town. It's where we go when it's too cold to go up on the rim. It's like 5,500 foot elevation. It still gets cold there, but it's not buried in snow all winter long like the Mogollon Rim is. So we'll finish our season out there, and then we start the season out there. Rob and I were out there and was actually getting a little communication from another one whose name is Tarragon, and his mate is Tarragon. So it's
Wow.
like, wow, different location, but here we are with this, with these Gon and Gen suffixes of the male and female that are members of the Gan. And we're just sitting there going, this is absolutely incredible. How does all this work? And asking them questions, and when Rob and I were out there, it was, that's how it was revealed, is that it's in the top echelon of the hierarchy is who the Gan is. How it works, I don't know. They're not real clear about it. If they were, it's something I missed. But it's an absolute. I don't even know the word to describe it. But when stuff like that starts coming together, and it's like,
Wow.
holy shit. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is a woman. This woman. She is the last of her kind. This lady, the Northwest Native Tracker. I hope to have her on one day once we figure out the technology of the things. She's one. She says she's the last of her kind. She's in Oregon. 7 months. Supposed to be in a year where she goes out into the woods. And she has an incredible amount of knowledge that I hope one day she gets to come on and share with us. And she was saying that the Gan is the same ancient suffix of the Mongolian. She knows. I spoke with her, Kevin, for maybe 20 minutes on the phone. Somehow we got to figure it out that I could speak with her. And the stuff that she's going to have, I can't wait to maybe even get you guys connected together, because she is a Native American. And she knows. She was actually asking where you got the suffix from, and you said you got it from the. I think you said the Apache, if I hopefully I got that correctly. And it's just this. All these things are coming out. Yeah, please.
Yeah, the suffix of Gen and Gon, that was given specifically to me from Indy. And I'll readdress this real quick.
Sure.
2017, I'm brand new. I have no idea what I'm doing. I go down into what I call Squatch Valley. I'm looking for structures. Footprint, it's going that way. So I go out across the large Black Mountain rattlesnake. I'm having this weird conversation in my head about eating him for dinner and not, what gives me the right to take his life. so all this was going on, and the snake crawls away. I put the video on the snake. As soon as I turned my phone off, hit the stop on the record on my phone, about 30 feet away from me, in front of me, was this powerful, "Why you what?" And, so this had all happened. And as I'm leaving the area, kind of terrified, but, holding it together, my name is Kevin. Do you have a name? I have a mate. Do you have a mate? I have offspring. Do you have offspring? And I was doing that more to comfort myself, but also, maybe if he understands what I'm saying, if he kills me, there's going to be an army up on the mountain, fully armed, looking to, wreak havoc. Um, so this went on as I went back to camp that night. I have this dream vision. I call it a visitation. He had come up to me, not speaking, and he says, "I am Eadengon, and this is my mate, Eadengen." And
Wow.
so that's the Reader Digest version of that. But
Right.
so that's where I got the gone and the gen was from him. And I remember I woke up and I was going, "What the hell was that all about?" And it was like, and it took me a while. It was probably 3 weeks that he would reiterate his name to me, but the way he said it and the way I'm saying it is like, me trying to speak Navajo. I can't speak
Right.
Navajo. So when I say Eadengon, the way he pronounced it, you got the clicks and pops in it that I can't do. So I just started calling him Indy. And and so over a period of time, he reiterated over and over and over that it's Eadengon and
Wow.
Eadengen, but I just called him Indy. And if your name's Richard, might call you Rich, or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Happened with
and
my
and
girlfriend too.
so I just called him Indy. What, you called her Rich?
No, I didn't call her Rich. Her name is Sarah
But
Serafina, and I couldn't remember it, so I just call her Sarah so I can remember it. So that's kind of a little
yeah,
thing that we do. It's
yeah,
completely normal. Dude, I just got to mention on the side, there's a bunch of new members on
yeah.
the show. Thank you guys so very much for your sharing information on the side, connecting with channels, talking to other people. We got Kevin on here. Please go over check Kevin's information. We have a bunch of new people. I haven't seen you guys before. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the show. Appreciate your look at this. Verax. I don't know. Unreal Real Estate. You got a picture of a dog man going on over there. Hi, howdy. How's it going? This is incredible. Like, it started off with 4 and now we're currently at 19 people. This is incredible. Kevin, so what are the plans going forward,
Beautiful.
my friend? Yeah, it is beautiful, isn't it, man? This is what we're here to do. We're here to share information. You're putting in pieces of the puzzle the way you see them with the best intentions, and that's super important. And not everyone has all the answers, which is important. Which is what I'm also trying to foster here. It's like, open discussion, open dialogue, trying to, to squash that ego, this, that. That's not what we're here to do. And I just want to know what's going, excuse me. What is it like? What is it looking like going forward with you and your team or friends or your group going into the future? Excuse me, I'm stumbling all over my words.
Hey, that's all right. First off, you can call us the team, you can call us the group and all that. We're brothers, we love each other. We enjoy spending our time together. We dig on each other all the time. There's a lot of grief that goes back and forth, but it's a beautiful thing. The camaraderie that we share is unmatched. What we're looking to do is just bring some of this to the light. For me, myself, for Kevin, I want to engage people, to get them to think, to let go of all this dogma, that so many people seem to have, and I'll give you a prime example of it. In the Bigfoot world, when you hear that whack, we call it a wood knock. They're banging on the side of the tree. I don't for one instant believe that that's what's going on, just because of the experiences I've had. I.e., my son and I, we hear a knock. It takes us 15, 20 minutes to find a branch on the ground that's not rotten, that's solid enough that we can do a return knock and get a good sound out of. And we do that and immediately get a knock back. We do it again, we get a double knockback. We're excited. We're like, oh, we're getting knocks. Well, the key point is it took us 15 minutes or so to find in the middle of the forest a stick on the ground that was sturdy enough, big enough to be able to create that wood knock sound. It sounds like a wood knock. It sounds like somebody hitting the side of a tree with the Louisville Slugger. I agree with that. It does. And I understand that that's kind of why the term tree knock came out. But, when you have, when you're out in the field for 3 weeks and you've got nothing to talk to except for the birds and the squirrels, you start thinking about all this stuff. And, I'm nuts and bolts kind of guy. It took me a long time to find a stick. Well,
Okay.
They're not walking around carrying billy clubs. And, so it has to be something else. So breaking away from traditional thinking, which I've always done my entire life. I'm always, Christopher Columbus discovered America. I got a question. Weren't there Indians here first? So I'm always, questioning. I'm always, trying to figure things out. And the best I can come up with, okay, they're big, they're strong, they've got big, strong hands.
Right.
I can do that out in the middle of the forest at night. And the guys will tell you, once in a while I get a really good clap and it sounds like, somebody knocking on a tree. Now
Right.
you take somebody who's, I'll just take an average one, 8 foot tall that weighs 1,000 pounds and, has the strength to pull a tree out of the ground. And they do that. Guess what you're going to get? Is that what they're doing? I don't know. But
especially if you cup your hands,
that makes a lot more sense.
If you cup them,
than them walking around the forest. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So walking around the forest with a billy club, waiting to hit a tree or waiting for somebody else to hit a tree so you can. It didn't resonate and it didn't make sense to me.
I'd say cool. So you basically just want people to think for themselves, try to, instead of, because these paradigms kind of fall in, it's flesh and blood, it's this, it's that, it's a tree knock, it's a gifting stump, to like, okay, we know this. Okay, now take that out of your paradigm and then try to look at it again with fresh eyes and see it for what it is, maybe differently than what you've been told. I think that's amazing. I think what you guys are doing out there is incredible. I'm so grateful that you guys come forward. Chris, you and the other two gentlemen, whatever, that's on them. That's their choice. And I really appreciate that you came on today and shared some of this stuff with us, my friend.
Happy to be here.
All right. So right up after this, guys, you're gonna thank you so much. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe. Remember, if you guys ever want to, the what do they call it? The super chats are open. If you want to support the show, it's not a requirement whatsoever, but it does help out. Every little bit does, so I can do this more full time and do a better product. Right up after this, Magical Journey podcast is coming right up, and I will be on in approximately 10 minutes. And one more time, Kevin, thank you so very much for coming on and sharing us your time, your wisdom, your wonderful personality, and everything included, my friend. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, guys. Yeah, having us. We'll be in contact, I'm sure of it, my friend. So, guys, remember, we are the eye. We are aware. I love you all, and you have a wonderful weekend, guys.